Let's talk some five-star recruiting. The 2026 class got updated on Monday for On3, and we've been featuring this class more and more. So in this video, I got On3's Director of Recruiting, Chad Simmons. We're going to run down which teams are in it for the top recruits in the 2026 class. We are going to get some information in today. But first, guys, do me a favor and hit subscribe to the On3 Recruit channel. This is the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube, and we want you to be a part of it. So jump on board. Hit subscribe. All right, let's bring in Director of Recruiting here at On3, Chad Simmons. Chad, we might as well start at the top. A new number one because Jakeem Stewart reclassified. He was our number one in 26. He's now in the 25 class. So the new number one is Zion Elee. He was on this channel just yesterday talking about how Oregon, along with Maryland, are two teams at the top. Now, Zion Elee, though, told me he's in no rush to decide. This probably isn't going to come until sometime in his senior season. So who else are you watching with number one overall Zion Elee?
Yeah, I think with him, you have to kind of just follow the visits. Where does he go next? He's been, like you said, Maryland over the weekend, had a great time there. Oregon a couple weeks ago, and now those two have kind of emerged as two favorites for him. He'll be at Auburn here soon. He wants to check out other schools. He's mentioned LSU, Georgia, Alabama. He grew up a fan of Alabama as well. So I think a lot of schools are still in play. The biggest, I guess, change or twist for Elee in recent weeks has been he was on the verge of committing, late in the summer, early in the fall. Now, as you said, Josh, he wants to wait until probably sometime either early senior year or this time next year to make that decision. So obviously plenty of time for other schools to make moves. Oregon setting the pace. Maryland made a big move over the weekend. Let's see where he goes next to kind of figure out, again, follow those visits with a guy like Zion Elee. He wants to see new places and compare school to school.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He mentioned don't sleep on Alabama. He grew up a Crimson Tide fan. He wants to get to campus to see it for himself in person. Speaking of following visits, Jackson Cantwell, he's been taking some. So I know he's been to Ole Miss. He's been to Nebraska. He's been to Georgia. I might be missing one. This weekend, though, he's expected to be at Alabama. So the number one offensive tackle in America. What do you make of his recruitment early on?
Yeah, one place he's been this season is Missouri. Obviously, in-state school that would love nothing more than to keep him home next year in the Show Me State out there with Coach Drink. So, look, I think right now if there's one school kind of setting the pace, I would say Georgia. He keeps going back to Georgia. And like I asked him specifically a couple weeks ago after that trip to Athens about kind of what keeps him going back, and he couldn't really think of a good answer. Just think about just likes it there. He has a good time around the people. Obviously, Georgia's player development kind of speaks for itself, and they're, a national championship, battling program every year. But I think with Georgia, you have to think with Missouri, in-state school, as he's been there numerous times, has connections there with his family as well. Nebraska has connections there. He's been there multiple times to Lincoln. Upcoming trips to Alabama, LSU. He's a big SEC guy. I think Nebraska, obviously a Midwestern program that has his attention to right there close to home with tradition there and stuff like that. But if there's one school or a couple of schools, I think Georgia, Nebraska, at one time Oklahoma, they faded some a little bit early on with Jackson. But I think Georgia's that one school kind of setting the pace early here.
All right, now Jackson Cantwell will be at Alabama this weekend, so we'll want to see what he says coming out of that one. Let's move to the number 3 ranked player in the country. He's our number 1 ranked quarterback. That's Jared Curtis. He was also on this channel this week. Go find that video in one of our playlists. Go watch it. Jared Curtis, fresh off that decommitment from Georgia, names Oregon as leader. Another 2026 top 5 player with Oregon on top, but I got a feeling Georgia is not out of this. A lot of times when we see guys decommit, it generally means they're out, even though they might mention that there's still a program in the mix. But with Jared Curtis, I get a feeling that Georgia has a real shot to land him still. Inside Scoop listeners, we love Prize Picks. You know how to play. You pick 2 or more players, then select more or less on their stat line. Submit your lineup. It takes less than 60 seconds. And right now, if you play with $5, win or lose on that $5, you're going to have $50 in your account. Last week, I paired Shedeur Sanders on the more than on his passing yards, along with Ryan Williams on 68 yards receiving. I hit more than on that. He went for 73. And boom, I'm winning money. It's easy. Prize Picks Easy, fun, great way to play daily fantasy while you watch your favorite college football team. Let me know who you guys got in your lineup this week. I know Coach Prime said Travis Hunter is a go, so I'm probably going to take more than on his receiving yards. But in the comment section below, I need some winners. Let me know who we're playing in Prize Picks. And also, go to prizepicks.com/inside scoop. Use promo code inside scoop to receive that guaranteed 50 when you play 5. So go to prizepicks.com/inside scoop. Use promo code inside scoop. Receive $50 on 5. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Yeah, I mean, they love nothing more than to get him back in this class. I mean, he was actively recruiting guys to play with him at Georgia in this 2026 class just a month or two ago. So obviously, I think for him, he felt a little bit maybe guilty about, being committed, taking trips to USC, South Carolina, talking to other coaches, lining up future trips, future visits to, Alabama or Auburn or other places. So I think he wanted to take a step back and just kind of reopen his recruitment. Obviously, Oregon kind of speaks for itself. He named them the leader, but there's a lot of schools in the mix. You said Georgia, they have not gone away. They're definitely not out of the mix, but I think, a strong, SEC flavor, with South Carolina. He loves that coaching staff. Sees an opportunity there. I mean, he's going to Alabama, going to Auburn. I think numerous schools will work hard in the coming months to get him on campus and become a factor. But I think Oregon, Georgia, South Carolina are some schools to watch right now.
All right, from the number 1 quarterback to the number 1 ranked wide receiver, and we finally hit a committed player. Chris Henry Jr. out of Mater Dei in California. He goes 6'5", 195, and Chris Henry made an early commitment to Ohio State. Are there other teams that are trying to get involved in this one, and how do you consider Henry's commitment to the Buckeyes right now?
Yeah, there's been other teams for sure, with that S on their teams, being like USC, Oregon, Texas, schools like that have worked to try to get in the mix, get them on campus. But the one team is Oregon, probably the biggest competition for Ohio State. Henry went down this season with an injury. He's not playing the rest of the year. That's limited some of his visits as well. So I think, Ohio State got him on campus back in September. He was there in the summer. I feel good about Ohio State's position here. He's from Ohio, loves Heartline. The receivers, the development kind of speaks for itself there at Ohio State. But if there's one school to watch, I see as competition for Ohio State right now, that's the University of Oregon. Since he went out there and moved from Ohio to the West Coast, he's been to Oregon a couple of times, and he likes the staff. He likes Junior Adams. Obviously, Oregon beat Ohio State in a big game earlier this month. But I think Ohio State has to feel good about their position, but Oregon is right now that team to watch.
Yeah. All right. So Chris Henry, one of 2 players in the top 10 that are committed. Moving on to number 5, Emmanuel Iacho. Now, he's from Baltimore, Maryland, goes 6'6.5", 350 pounds. He's ranked as our number 2 offensive tackle in the country, just behind Jackson Cantwell. Now, Iacho was expected to be at Tennessee over the weekend. Instead, he popped up at Maryland to watch that USC game. Still very early in his recruitment, but Chad, set the table here with Iacho.
Yeah, I think you hit it, Josh, very early. He's at Georgetown Prep. He lives at a boarding school away from his family. So he's told me multiple times it's hard to get out and get on visit. And not just for him, but for his families, to kind of reunite, get on the same trip, be on the same page. So, look, I think Maryland's very much in play. If there's one school that I like their position early, it's probably Penn State. He's been there multiple times, plans to go back at some point this season. He has a good connection with Coach Troutwine, the offensive line coach. Coach Franklin's involved as well. For him, academics will be a big factor. I mean, he did like Georgia back in the spring. He told me over the weekend that at one time Georgia was his top school. He loved that trip, seeing them spring practice, and he wants to get to multiple schools from Miami to other programs throughout the country that are still on his radar. Oregon's had him on campus as well. They're in play, but Penn State probably setting the pace. They've had him on campus multiple times. He likes the staff. He feels good there, but it's going to come down to where he and his family can get to, whether it's now in the fall or for official visits in the spring and summer. His parents will play a big role in his recruitment.
All right, let's move on to number 6. We have another committed prospect. It's Bell, the quarterback from American Heritage, committed to Texas over the summer. He's 6'3", 190. Now he's been back to Austin a couple times. He seems rock solid. So we're going to move on to number 7 here, and you got Blaine Bradford, the number 1 safety in America. Kind of interesting. His older brother flipped from Houston to LSU just a couple weeks ago. So Blaine Bradford, number 1 safety in America from the state of Louisiana. Is LSU the team to beat here?
Clearly, Josh. I mean, he's from Louisiana. He's from Baton Rouge, plays a program like Catholic right there in their own backyard at LSU. His brother flipping from Houston to LSU only helps their chances. I mean, even before his brother was committed to LSU, I think most of us in the industry liked where LSU set. Of course, there's been Texas involved, Notre Dame, some other programs too, but he likes the new staff. Blaine Baker and the defensive staff at LSU has made him a top priority. He's been there double-digit times, easy to get to, and now his brother's there as well. I think for me, it's only a matter of time, we feel like, before Blaine jumps in and kind of joins his brother.
All right, let's move on to number 8 out in California. We got Brandon Arrington, the nation's number 1 athlete. He goes 6', 180. Now, Brandon Arrington sat down. He's going to be in an interview on the show. It'll be later in the show, so you want to catch that. But Chad, catch us up on Brandon Arrington out of La Mesa, California.
We say it all the time, Josh, follow the visits. He's going back this weekend to Texas A&M. He's been there already this season. He was there over the summer. I did a story about him earlier this year or this fall about A&M being his top school. I don't think anything has changed there. The people, the fan base, the support, the opportunity to see the field, I think all appeal to Arrington when talking about the Texas A&M football program under Mike Elko. Oklahoma's been a school mentioned. Oregon, I've heard some things about as well. He's been to Nebraska also for a visit. But I think right now there's some separation between Texas A&M and everybody else.
All right, yeah, big weekend out at A&M, and Brandon Arrington, top 10 player in America, will be a part of it. All right, let's move on to the number 2 ranked wide receiver in America, number 9 overall out of Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Another stud receiver in Mississippi, Tristan Keys, set the table for his recruitment.
He was just at Tennessee for the Florida game where they tore down the goalpost in overtime. And the night before that, an interesting note is he was off that week. He flew over to North Carolina to watch Faison Brandon, the quarterback committed to Tennessee. And they've become quite the pair, and they talk a lot and communicate, and they built that relationship and that connection. So right now, I'm liking where Tennessee sits, for Tristan Keys. Look, he's going to be a coveted receiver in this class. You have to think, obviously, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, 2 in-state programs are going to do all they can to get him on campus. Ole Miss wanted him on campus this weekend, but instead he's going to Texas A&M. So A&M's involved. Alabama, he's listed as well. Auburn, he's talked about Florida State multiple times. LSU. So still a pretty big crop of schools that are in play for Tristan Keys. But after that recent trip to Tennessee for the Florida game and his time with Faison Brandon, the receivers coach Kendall Pope at Tennessee, the offense under Josh Heupel, I like where the Vols sit right now, Josh, for Tristan Keys.
Yeah, he's explosive at 6'3", 170. I've been exchanging some messages with Keys. I think we're going to have an interview on this channel with him this week. All right, let's move to number 10. We got PJ Dean, a people mover in the middle. The number 1 interior offensive lineman in America. He goes 6'3.5", 305 pounds. He's out of North Carolina. Chad, what are you hearing on Dean's recruitment early on?
Yeah, he's a loud guy on the field that loves to pancake guys and be physical and loud and disruptive. But off the field, he's very quiet about his recruitment. Doesn't take a lot of visits, doesn't do a lot of interviews. And I spoke with him this week, and he named 3 schools for me. And that starts with Georgia. His brother, Jerry Wilson, starts at center at the University of Georgia. They're connected, obviously. He's been around Coach Searles in that program more than anywhere else. So I like where Georgia's at right now, kind of setting the pace here in this recruitment. But he also mentioned Alabama. He was there for a game earlier this fall. He likes Coach Cap, the O-line coach there in Tuscaloosa. He likes SEC football. Then he mentioned Ohio State. He hasn't been to Columbus yet. He'd love to get there for the Michigan game if possible next month in November, but he likes their development, their program, and the offensive line, Justin Fry. But right now, if you had to pick a favorite, if I did, I'd lean Georgia's way because of the brother there having success. And he's been there a lot. He feels very comfortable with the staff, with Coach Searles, Coach Smart, and those guys. But he plans to kind of take this thing slow, take visits in the spring, OVs in the summer, and then make his decision.
All right, there you have it. That is a rundown of the top 10 in the 2026 class. These are the On3 rankings, which were updated by Charles Power on Monday. So wanted to catch you guys up, get you brought up to speed on where things stand in the top 10. So let us know in the comment section below, how many of these guys is your team going to land? Let us know, comment section below.